I kind of had this come to Jesus with myself where I said to myself, I'm building businesses for other people. How do I start building a business for myself?
Welcome to Multifamily Insights. I'm your host, John Casman, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. If you are enjoying this show and getting some great value for your investing goals, make sure you let us hear about it. Leave us some honest feedback with a rating and a review. It helps us, but it also helps other listeners find this show for their own investing goals. And if you haven't done so, or this is your first time listening, be sure to hit that follow or subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Now, again, we've got a great show today. We're going to be talking to Matt Buchalski. They say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you want to grow as a multifamily investor, you have to spend more time with other multifamily investors. And an easy way to do that is to join our apartment investing mastermind group today. Just go to casmancapital.com and click on the mastermind button. Now, as a part of this group, you'll get access to expert trainings, group coaching calls, industry news and updates, as well as all of our webinars and workshops, including our 3-hour workshop on raising capital. Again, if you want to be around other multifamily investors that can help you scale your portfolio today and grow your network, make sure you're a part of the Apartment Investing Mastermind. Just go to casmancapital.com and click on the Mastermind button today. Matt Buchalski is a serial business builder, sales leader, and multifamily investor with nearly 2 decades of experience. Now, he has built and scaled multiple sales organizations from the ground up, and he has a deep expertise in financial services and the software vertical. Now, Matt is currently the head of sales for Ownwell and is known for his high energy servant leadership across customer satisfaction, team development, and achieving strategic goals. Let's welcome to the show, Matt Buchalski.
Hey, John. Thanks for
Matt,
having me on the show. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir, Matt. It's great to have you on the show. I went over your bio at a very, very high level. Why don't you take 2 minutes and fill in some of those gaps?
Sure. I think you did a great job. But I'm Matt Buchalski. As you mentioned, I'm currently head of sales with Ownwell. We'll get into that, I'm sure, a little later in the show. But, I am, I think at my core, John, I'm a hustler in a lot of ways, right? I had my first cold calling job a week out of high school back in the mid 90s, and have not looked back on my career in sales and ultimately sales leadership. To me, I get a lot of energy and fulfillment about building things and specifically sales teams. And I've done that numerous times in my career and have been very, very fortunate to have some leaders that put a tremendous amount of faith in me to go achieve strategic goals. I love the concept of investing in my teams, building great teams, helping people become the best versions of themselves. And I continue to do it. On a related note, in 2016, I kind of had this come to Jesus with myself where I said to myself, I'm building businesses for other people, right? How do I start building a business for myself? And how do I kind of frame that out in such a way where I can stay disciplined and goal oriented and career focused on my W-2, but have something on the side that really, helps from an income perspective, a net worth perspective. And I found real estate. And so I've been an active investor in real estate since 2016. We can talk more about that journey. Outside of work and building real estate, I'm a father of 2, engaged to be married in June of next year. My fiance's got a lovely little girl, so we'll be a family of 5. I love to cook. I like to get dirty and do Spartan races. I go to the gym pretty much every day of the week, and I love to consume content that makes me a better person.
I love it. Great stuff, Matt. I mean, you talked about kind of your background in sales, starting right out of high school, getting energized by that and building companies, building sales teams, but recognizing that you wanted to build something for yourself as well. That got you into real estate. And now you kind of work with investors and you kind of, help other real estate professionals as well as, with work you do with Onwell, which we're going to get into in a moment here. And congratulations on, being engaged and the family. And I'm sure that's an exciting time for you all to come together and create a new life together. Let's start, man, with the sales, because I think it's so interesting when you talk about you getting into it out of high school. And I know for a lot of people, they see sales as something that you either have it in you, organically, you can go out there and be extroverted and knock on doors and let those doors get slammed in your face and be okay. And for a lot of other people, it's really it's really intimidating, right? They're maybe more introverted, maybe they take those no's a little bit more harshly. Talking about the mindset that it takes to be a successful sales professional.
Yeah, great question. So I think the mindset of being a successful salesperson can be segmented in two or three different things, right? Two or three different ways. Number one, I believe successful salespeople have something inside them that just keeps them going despite the obstacles, the setbacks, the rejection, the failure. Like all that stuff is table stakes. And I think if you're going to be successful in sales, you have to recognize that on day one. If you're surprised about rejection, failure, the fact that it's hard, you're probably not going to have a long career in sales. So I think there's absolutely something about the grittiness and the mindset of being successful in sales. Two, and my business partner Nick told me this, and I kind of know it was one of those moments where you it was like I knew that, but you heard it out loud, and Nick said that money is exchanged when problems are solved, right? And I think when you think about selling anything from shampoo to multifamily apartments or enterprise software, at the core of every one of those transactions is a problem, right? You have dandruff, you need to go buy shampoo. You want to get out of an asset to go into a bigger asset, you're solving that problem. You have IT problems or you're trying to figure out how to get it more operationally efficient, you buy software to help fix that problem or achieve that goal. And so money is exchanged when problems are solved needs to be a core tenet if you're going to be successful in sales. And then lastly is this mindset of condition your body for a sprint and your mind for a marathon, right? Uh, Sales is the long game. And look, there's probably way more people that start and retire in some sort of sales position that start and retire early in sales. Although I think that's becoming a little bit more prevalent lately. But sales is the long game. You could start at a new company tomorrow and it takes 3, 6, 9 months to get going, right? Especially when you have a longer sales cycle product. And if you're thinking about achieving success in 3 or 6 months, you may not get there and you may get frustrated, but you have to think about the long game and condition your body to run hard every day, but keep your mind focused on being ready to go long and for a very hard and long time.
Those are some great insights. You talked about first and foremost the mindset that it takes, being able to overcome rejection and obstacles, and just conditioning your mind to overcome those things. Having a long view. I love that quote you said, right? Conditioning the body for a sprint, but the mind for a marathon. And it's really putting the emphasis on the right things and being somewhat patient with the results in the time that you have to invest. I'm thinking about some of our listeners who may be on the brokerage side or capital raisers or folks who are out there acquiring deals. And the sales title may not necessarily, fit into our, our description or our name or our title. But there's definitely some sales components to the work we do, right? If you're raising capital for a deal, there's a notion that you've got to go out there and build an investor database, right? You've got to be able to talk to people. You got to be able to bring them on to your deals. Same thing with our brokers or anyone who's in the business, right? You got to have those contacts. You have to be able to find those opportunities. And the quote you said to start things off was you said, money is exchanged when problems are solved. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on, how we can get better as real estate investors specifically on focusing on solving problems so that we can increase the deals and the flow of sales that we're seeing?
Yeah, great question. And, I think when you break that down, there's really probably two or three different conversations, right? Number one, if you're looking to buy a property, right, have to do your best to understand why the seller wants to get out, right? And with a broker in between, sometimes that's hard to do. When you're dealing direct, it's still difficult to do because you never know if the seller is giving you a spin game or telling you the truth, right? But you always need to keep an ear out for a clue that tells you that there's a bigger problem or something at stake for the seller as to why they're selling that property. If they need to liquidate that property because they see a bigger deal that they have to move on, there's urgency there. And how do you play into that urgency, right? If they have a sick sibling or someone in their family and they need to liquidate that property, that would be very helpful for you to know. It may give you a little bit of leverage to negotiate the price down, may help you understand their urgency and timelines and stuff. So you need to really probe and ask great questions. And I think being a great salesperson has taught me to ask really good questions and to be honestly and genuinely committed to curiosity and understanding their business and what they're trying to achieve. Right. So I think that's it on the kind of acquisition side. On the capital raising side, it's like, okay, well, why do you want to put money into a real estate deal? Right? You almost want to try and find ways to disqualify the investor, right? And really tell them, like, are you prepared to tie up your capital for 3 months or 3 years or 5 years, right? If for some reason we go through, a situation where we are in an economy like this and we may need to extend the hold time to achieve our target returns, is that something that you're prepared for? What else could you be doing with this money? Right? I mean, the last thing you want is for a husband to make a single-sided decision on investing in a real estate deal when his wife thinks she's getting a new kitchen, right? I don't want to be in the middle of that conversation. So it's about understanding goals, asking really genuine questions about their why and why they want to put their money into real estate and why they want to put their confidence in you, and really helping them understand that you're going to go to work for them, but you're looking for their commitment to stick with you along the way.
Yeah, I love that. You talked about a commitment to curiosity. And I love that phrase because I think it's a great way to think about it. It's like to genuinely be interested in what's going on. Why do you want to invest? Asking better questions, not just listening for the things you want to hear, but really understanding what's going on with them. What problems are they trying to solve and how can you help them? And sometimes by going down that path, you uncover some things that can help both of you. One of the things that I always see is when I'm talking to investors, they may say, "Hey, I'm interested in real estate. I just don't have the capital right now." And they're interested in maybe learning, they want to get involved. And that feels like a really legit, obstacle, not having the money to invest. But one of the things that I found is often if you ask enough questions, they may have access to more capital than they're thinking about, whether that be through kind of an old 401k or some other means. And if that's legit, truly the only thing that was holding them back, now we've helped them find access to capital that they can use to get into these deals and maybe accelerate their education, their investing, and do more for themselves. So asking those questions and having a legit sense of curiosity, I think is a phenomenal way of thinking of it, whether you are looking to acquire a property and understand what a seller is looking for, or if you are an investor yourself looking to raise capital, you want to make sure you're serving the people around you and coming up with the best solutions. So love that tip and love that feedback there. You obviously overcome objections all the time being in a sales world. So how do you approach that? What are some things that we can do to be better whenever we are into these sales roles and we are trying to get people to see things the way we want them?
Yeah. So I mean, there's a number of different methodologies in objection handling, but like let's double tap into the one you just said, right? I want to get into real estate, but I don't have the money, right? Just like in sales, when we call up to position a product and they're like, well, we don't have the budget for that right now. Let's take that off the table for a second and say, well, if you did have the money, what would you be doing right now? Or let's say money is not the issue. What's the problem that you would want to solve? Sometimes in sales or attracting or raising capital, people are just conditioned to give the knee-jerk no, right? They've walked into that retail store a million times in their career, and they go into that store for a reason, and the salesperson says, "Can I help you with something?" And they're like, "No, just looking," right? There's probably way more people that walked in there to buy something, and they just said they're not looking, just to kind of get the person out of the way, right? So how do you reframe that conversation and take the objection off the table and get to really the root cause of why they're defensive, right? Could it be lack of familiarity, lack of trust? Could this person just be hypersensitive or hyper cynical in some ways, right? But the best way you're going to do that is by sidestepping the objection, asking a question, and continue asking questions. You may still end up with a no, but chances are the first objection that someone gives you is probably not the real reason why they aren't going to take action, right? And in the real estate investor context, I want to invest in real estate, but I don't have the money. Okay, well, if you did have the money, how would you be getting into real estate? Oh, I don't know. I don't really have the time either. Okay, well, if you did have the time, what would you do? I really don't know. That's the thing. I really just don't know what to do. Okay, now we've uncovered the real issue, right? You don't know what part of real estate you want to get, involved in. And so you got to continue to ask questions, peel that onion back, get to the root cause of the objection, and then you can kind of work with them and give your opinion and give some guidance on what they should be doing to kind of grow themselves to overcoming the objection.
Yeah, I love it because, to your point, I imagine most people don't think through their own objections deep enough to be able to articulate it to you on that first question. So it does take a little bit of discovery to go back and forth and for them to reflect, to really think through what's going on and what those objections are, what those concerns are, and what they're trying to solve. So I appreciate you breaking that down for us. I want to talk a little bit more about, the work you're doing today, right? So let's start with Ownwell. What exactly is Ownwell, and tell me more about what the firm does and what you focus on there.
So Ownwell's mission is to reduce the cost of property ownership uh, for both residential and commercial properties. I went through, a number of various interview cycles over the summertime and landed on Ownwell for, a couple of main reasons. Number one, the company is very, very mission driven. From the CEO on down, everybody in this company is committed to saving our customers money. And I've never seen a focus on that, regardless of the companies that I've worked for. We literally measure the amount of money that we're saving our customers. And we don't necessarily do that as from a top line perspective, a revenue perspective, but we're very boisterous about the amount of money that we're saving our customers. And so, that really stood out to me. But I think from an opportunity perspective, the business of our main business is property tax appeals. It's 98% of our revenue, maybe a little higher. It's a business that's been around for a while, right? In my opinion, it hasn't been exciting for a while, right? I have a couple of property tax appeal companies that I've worked with in the past, and I hear from them a couple of times a year, right? Your appeal's coming up. Do you want to file? Send us your financials, and here's your outcome. And I see Ownwell as a disruptor in the space, right? Our CTO and his organization leverage data from 150 different data sources so that we can be highly effective with our marketing. We can be highly effective with our messaging. And we know very, very quickly if we think we can help you. We don't want to waste your time if we don't think we can help you. And we can figure that out very, very quickly. Now, it's interesting because the genesis of Ownwell is really on the residential side. We've very quickly grown to the largest property tax appeal company in Texas with more than 250,000 customers in less than 4 years. And over the last couple of years, we've seen our commercial business really start to grow organically. And so, my job with the company is to really engage inside the commercial real estate community in the higher end of the single family institutional community and talk literally with empathy about the current state of the market, the various market cycles for the asset types that we cover, and help these folks realize that Ownwell is doing something different inside a space that might have gotten, a little lax, right? And we're taking a very exciting approach to the market, and our reception from the market has been unbelievable.
No, I appreciate that. So you mentioned, helping with property taxes. I know you mentioned in Texas you serve over a quarter of a million people. Are you exclusive to Texas? Are you nationwide? What's your coverage?
Great questions. So today we operate in 7 states: Texas, Florida, Georgia, New York, Illinois, Washington State, and California. Right. And we've done very well in all of those states. We're based in Austin, so Texas is kind of our, home turf, if you will. But there's enormous opportunities in each of those other 6 markets. And I look forward to partnering with our marketing team and continuing to scale out our sales team to go make our presence known in those markets.
You mentioned that your team is doing something different and kind of really disrupting what has been a pretty stagnant industry without, sharing any kind of secrets or anything like that. What are you all doing that's different from what others are offering?
Yeah, everything that we do is data science based, and we're finding ways to leverage AI and automation to create competitive advantage on speed to market, speed of turnaround, right? Speed of decisioning. And then we have a group of property tax consultants that we hire and that are in-house, that are very, very familiar with the jurisdictions in which they represent. Right. So it's a very potent and effective combination of people, process, and technology.
I love it. I love it. Appreciate you sharing that. And it's obviously one of the things that technology is allowing everyone to do is, leverage the information that is out there for the betterment, for the more, efficiency and effective nature of the results. And your team and your company has been able to do that. And that's a great thing for us to look into. And for those who are in those states that you service and are interested in learning more, I advise you go ahead and shoot Matt an email. His email address is matt@ownwell.com. We'll make sure we link to that in our show notes. Matt, I want to talk a little bit more about kind of your own investing journey at this point. You mentioned before that you started investing in 2016 in real estate. Talk to me more about the kind of projects you've invested in and kind of what are you doing today?
Yeah. So I started off, like many others, with a couple of single family investments. So I bought 2 inside of 90 days in 2016, and then bought our first multifamily in early 2017, not too far from AT&T Stadium in Arlington. And then my partner at the time, I was going to try and take that deal down by myself. And after seeing the amount of CapEx and updating it needed, I realized I'd probably have to put, my life savings at the time into that deal. And so I was listening to Bigger Pockets, and Brandon said, 50% of a deal is better than 100% of no deal. So I reached out to a guy I had been networking with. We took the deal down. We self-funded it. I put it on our own book, self-managed it for several years, worked with a handyman to do 8 units worth of rehab that took 8 months. Like, we cut our teeth on it. And one day he said, well, how are we going to scale? And I was like, well, just buy more small properties. And so we had looked at a larger multifamily deal. And honestly, we had some limiting beliefs on our ability to raise the capital. Right. And so a couple of years go by, we did a couple of flips. We bought a couple more single families. We're kind of buying up this block in North Texas that we have a bunch of townhouses on. And, sure enough, we joined a multifamily coaching community that was very eye-opening for us. And while we were at our first meetup in Tennessee, we saw a property like a half a mile from the other one that we owned in Arlington that was for sale. We had our property up for sale, and we saw this one. And so we were, proximity is power, right? We were like, we're in this room of people that are doing big deals. Let's go look at a big deal. I flew back to DFW Sunday night at like 7, and I had our realtor meet us at the property at 8 o'clock on a Sunday night to show it to me. And we ended up making an offer and buying it. So I think there's a lot to probably unpack there, but started off with single family, overcame a bunch of limiting beliefs, and then, joined a community where we could tap into the knowledge, confidence, and passion of others. And from that point on, I've done 10 deals in the last 4 years, one sale, nine acquisitions.
Man, I love it. You mentioned just starting off like many other investors, single family house, bought two of them in 90 days, had a partner. You ended up JVing on his deal together. You mentioned that Brandon Turner quote, 50% of a deal is better than 100% of nothing. And that kind of allowed you to shift your mindset to say, let me go ahead and try to partner instead of trying to, risk everything to do this for myself. And from there, when you started thinking about scaling, you realized there were some limiting beliefs. Even though you were scaling, you were buying some smaller properties, you joined this membership group, and through that community, you get exposed to just how to do bigger deals, thinking about the deals, the mindset that it takes. And at that very first event, you flew back to DFW, had a deal close to the one you had already owned. And that gave you kind of the courage to move forward, raise the capital, do what you need to do to get that deal done. And I just think it's really important because when you are looking to scale, it's going to be uncomfortable, and I loved hearing you say it because you're a guy who comes from sales. And most people do not come from sales, right? Most people do not have that thick skin to take rejection the way you've been able to build up over the years. So for you to kind of just share that, hey, this was a fear that you had, and this was a challenge that you had to overcome. I think that's really helpful for our listeners to understand that, hey, this is a natural reaction to have. Whenever you're pushing yourself outside those boundaries, it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but you did it anyway. And you did it by attacking the fear. You did it by joining a community where people were doing the exact thing you were looking to do. You did it by going and touring that property, understanding the numbers a little bit better, and going ahead and making that offer. So I appreciate you sharing that. I just think it's really helpful for us to just step back and remember it's okay to be scared. It's okay to sit and say, am I crazy for trying to buy this 100-unit building or whatever it is? It's okay to have that, right? But then you got to surround yourself with the people who are going to reinforce that you can do it. And I love that for you. Just out of curiosity, how big was that property that you bought, that first larger one?
Yeah, that one was a 16 unit.
16 units. I love it. I love it. And up to that point, your largest deal had been what?
Eight.
Okay. So double the size of the property will go from an 8 to a 16 unit, and you're able to take that down. So it's great to hear that. I just think it's really important for people to surround themselves with people who are in this space. I know for me, when I was starting out, I could listen to, podcasts and read blogs and read books. And that was always great. And it gave me the ideas and it gave me motivation. But none of my friends were in real estate. None of my family members were investing. So I still had this voice in my head saying, yeah, they could do it, but not you. Like, that's
Right.
not like, you don't know that guy. This is who that may not be a real story, right? Like, and it wasn't until I started going to live events where I could meet people who are truly investing in real estate. And I could ask all the random questions that in my head seemed critical, right? This is the reason I can't invest is because I don't know what to do if someone doesn't pay rent. And that was the reason that was, I was like, I can't buy a property because I don't know what to do there. Well, now I'm asking these questions. They tell me exactly what you do. Here's the process. Here's my eviction attorney. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, now I'm getting resourceful and I have answers to these questions. And now I don't have those same barriers. And it goes back to where you and I started the conversation about being in sales and overcoming objections. And once you start to peel back that onion and you understand how to invest, meaning you don't have all the answers, but you can get the answers. You know that there's a solution out there. Well, now you're empowered to move forward. And I think just like in sales, once you know that this thing can solve a problem, right? That's like you said before, money exchanges when problems are solved. But once we know that, hey, this is going to help me solve this problem, it's much easier to move forward. So I appreciate you sharing that. For folks that want to connect with you, you're active on LinkedIn. So we're going to put your LinkedIn in the show notes. So be sure to check out and connect with Matt there. Matt, I just want to also ask, as you look forward, we talked about what you're doing with Ownwell. We've talked a little bit about kind of your personal portfolio and scaling. Obviously, the market dynamics have shifted here over the last 18 months or so. What
Mhm.
are you working on as you kind of project forward over the next, say, 12 to 18 months?
Great question. I think we are absolutely taking an opportunist approach. So we continue to review and underwrite opportunities. I looked at one just a couple of days ago. We think that there is certainly buying opportunities out there, but I think there's still, despite everything going on macroeconomically, I think there's still a pretty wide gap between buyers and sellers in some cases, right? I know of three deals that we were quote unquote in second place on, right? And the deal was awarded to somebody else, and that buyer ended up dropping out somewhere through escrow or during the PSA, and that deal came back to us, but we had moved on to something else, right? So we're sticking to our underwriting criteria. I think we've actually become a little bit more conservative with our underwriting criteria, giving a little bit more padding on economic and occupancy, delinquency, et cetera. We've increased CapEx reserves, and anything that fits our strike zone after making those adjustments is stuff that we're pursuing pretty vehemently. We've also branched a little out into storage. So we bought an RV storage facility earlier this year that's performing pretty well. It's a little bit of a cyclical business. So right now we're just starting to see people wanting to put their RVs away after using them for the summertime, and business is starting to pick up there. But I think we're going to draw the line there. I've seen a number of other groups start to get what I'll call shiny penny syndrome, and they've gone from being very astute, very celebratory developers or multifamily investors, and now they've moved into a variety of different asset classes. We don't plan to do that. We like multifamily. We love DFW. We're going to pursue those deals opportunistically. We're probably going to move up from the B minus C plus type assets that we have in the portfolio. I think workforce housing right now is under a little bit of pressure because of cost of living increases, and despite what the data says, I don't think wages in that end of the market have kept up with inflation. So we're going to move up into some B and hopefully AA minus assets here. But it's business as usual for us. We're just being a little bit more cautious economically.
Oh, I love that, Matt. Great insights. And I love some of the little nuances of what you said, mainly when you are looking at deals today, you are being more cautious, more conservative, adding more reserves in your budget, really kind of just making some tweaks to make sure that you are prepared for some of the changes that may happen or the instability of the market. So I think it's really intelligent, and that's something I push everyone to do is, hey, however you underwrote deals 2 years ago is probably not how you should be underwriting deals today, right? So change some of those rule of thumbs and make sure that you are being really conservative to protect yourself and any partners that you may have. Again,
Yep.
we're going to put a link to Matt's LinkedIn in our show notes so you can check it out and connect with him there. Right now, we're going to transition to our round of insights. Matt, give me a failure or an apparent failure that set you up for later success.
Dropping out of college. So I got a partial ride to NYU a long time ago, and ended up leaving at the end of my second year, and going down a very dark path in my early 20s as a result. And one day I ended up seeing someone that I went to NYU with, and he was working at Morgan Stanley or something at the time. This is early 2000s, before the 2008 crash, and was doing very, very well. And it was kind of like a splash of cold water in my face, saying, dude, you're over here partying around 5 or 6 nights a week. You dropped out of college and you just ran into one of your former classmates that stuck it out, finished, and is now doing very, very well. How do you plan to bounce back? And so the answer to myself, when I ask myself that question, is I'm just going to outwork everybody, right? In the absence of a piece of paper on the wall. And I remember I was on an interview once where the HR guy who was interviewing me said he can't hire me because I didn't have a degree when everybody else on the floor did have one. That was like a match that lit a fire inside me that I have not let go of since. So I may not be the smartest guy in the room. I may not be the most, academically decorated person in the room, but chances are I'm going to outwork and out hustle you and outlearn you. And over the course of time, I think that's proved out to be a very good strategy between where I'm at in my career and where I'm at from an investing perspective.
I appreciate you sharing that. Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for your business.
I think LinkedIn is an unbelievable tool. You know, the reach that you have into like-minded professionals and an investing community and pretty much dedicated communities to pretty much anything that you want to do professionally. If you approach LinkedIn the right way, it can absolutely be an amplifier for your personal brand, help you find unbelievable career opportunities, attract capital, and build a following. So I think LinkedIn to me is probably most important.
Give me the book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
So there's two of them actually. Number one is the number one I've gifted over time is Phil Jackson's 11 Rings. I think that book has a number of amazing stories in there about how Phil Jackson made the Bulls and then the Lakers world-class teams, the journey he went through from becoming a player into a coach, how he managed egos, the whole thing, just unbelievable. And then the second one is a book by Bill McDermott called Winner's Dream. Bill was the co-CEO of SAP and then is now the CEO of one of the biggest SaaS companies out there, ServiceNow. And you talk about a guy that has an unbelievable career, has made himself an enormous amount of money, and the companies he represents an enormous amount of money. But that guy came from a blue collar family in Amityville, New York, and started off selling copiers and working in a deli that he seller financed as an adolescent. So those are the two books. They're amazing.
Give me a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals.
Working out. On days that I don't work out, which are few and far between, I don't feel like I am performing optimally. There's something about getting up early, coming out into the kitchen when it's nice and quiet, saying hello to the dog, having some pre-workout, and getting to the gym and either jamming out to some tunes or consuming a book that just gets me primed and ready for the day.
Give me your number one insight for succeeding in sales.
Don't give up. Simple as that. If you are learning and you are resilient and you're coachable, you'll be successful. But you have to stay in it that long in order to do those things. So don't give up, constantly learn, be coachable, and most importantly, do the work. There's a lot of folks out there that are complaining about sales being hard, and no kidding, right? But I know of very few careers where you can make athlete money, right? And still be home with your kids on the weekends and play golf on Friday, as long as you optimize your time and do those things that I just mentioned.
I love it. I love it. All right, let's lighten the mood. You are in Texas. You're in near Austin, right?
No, I'm actually in North Dallas.
North Dallas. Okay, North Dallas. All right, give me your favorite place to grab a bite to eat.
Depends on what I'm in the mood for. But there's a place called Urban Seafood in downtown Plano that I'm a seafood snob. I grew up in New York and I haven't been able to find really good seafood. The seafood there is unbelievable. It's super consistent. And my fiance and I have had some very important moments in our relationship there, and it's one of our favorite spots.
I love it, man. It sounds like a great venue to check out. Matt, you gave us a lot of great things to think about. One, just listening to your background, getting started in sales right out of high school, really just understanding what sales is. Sales is really about solving problems. I love that quote, money is exchanged when problems are solved. And just making sure we're thinking about, continually being curious, right? And another quote you gave me was the commitment to curiosity, asking the right questions, really learning about the people you're talking to, understand what challenges they face, and figuring out how you can help them. I think that's an excellent tip for anybody looking to raise more capital or to buy more properties. Be committed to being curious. And that's an excellent tip that I love that you shared. You also talked about just what it takes to be resilient, sticking through it, recognizing that you're going to have the door slammed in your face a couple times, and just having the right mindset, the body for a sprint, the mind for a marathon. And on top of that, you talked about just on real estate from an investing standpoint, start off building that single family portfolio, slowly start to get some duplexes and scale from there. But it really was joining that group, that community that allowed you to see things bigger and to scale into larger multifamily. Now you do multifamily, you've got a little bit of self-storage as well, with the RV storage facility, and continue to look to scale in your backyard. Again, for folks that want to learn more about what Ownwell can do for them from a tax standpoint, you can go to matt@ownwell.com. We'll put a link to that in the show notes. You can also connect with him on LinkedIn, which we will also put in our show notes. Matt, thanks again for being a great guest and coming on Multifamily Insights. We look forward to staying in touch with you, and I hope you have a great day.